Well, I now get to introduce to you Josefina Burgos. She received her master's degree from the California Institute of Integral Studies in the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program, and she also received her doctorate in the same program. Her dissertation is titled "The Story as Embodied Philosophy, a Tool for Cultural Transformation." And among her many accomplishments, including publishing short stories, since 2013, Josefina has been teaching 2 graduate seminars at Sophia Center at Holy Names University. The seminars are called New Cosmologies in Spiritual Practice and Visions of the Future. So today, she will be speaking to us on From Goethe to Whitehead, a path toward holistic ecological monism.
That's a little bit on my draft number 3 of my abstract. I changed the name because I gave it a little more thought. Anyway, well, that's okay. I'm going to come into the track 3, section 3, track 3 from a completely different angle that we've been hearing here. But it's a different angle, but it's the same content. It's amazing how much we are all sharing the same content. I took very seriously Matt's requirement, or Matt's, request for to get into the subject of the section, which and of our track, which was reimagining late modernism. So, what first of all, I got the surprise of the idea of late modernism, because being in the realm of PCC and CIIS, I always consider myself to be in postmodernist. But of course, we realize that once you get out of your environment of philosophers and so on, there is no postmodernism in the street or in the rural communities or whatever. We are definitely living in a period where the values of modernism are still very much alive, and not only alive, but they are exacerbated. They have become radical, and they become maladaptive. So the fact that some of the sociologists and social theorists that have called this period we're living late modernism is kind of hopeful, because by using the term late, the term late, they give us a little sense of hope that something in the air is moving, that some new moment, that some new ideology or some new conception of the world is coming on. So I would say that in order to step to the new era, that the era that we are envisioning as the ecological era, industrialized Western society need to come to the point in which collectively we need to be able to live from the idea of an organic vision of reality as opposed to a materialistic and mechanistic vision of reality. We need to subliminally experience the organic nature of the cosmos and leave behind what I call the claustrophobic anthropomorphic perspective. Now, if we want to reimagine late modernity, we should take on account what Eric Voegelin, the philosopher of history, calls an epochal, how do you pronounce that? Epochal outburst that the consciousness of our culture is experiencing. And it seems, and we're here together, so it seems even more obvious that the outburst is really gathering speed today and possesses quite a clear history. And so therefore, my personal reimagination of late modernity is a time for a collective reflection of renewed values. And the term collective here is very important, because as long as the values that are, or the ideas that we're getting from all the thinkers of late modernity don't don't move into the whole the culture, the whole community, we are not going to change our society. I mean, we need to get this epochal outburst and its a cluster of new values into Montana, into North Carolina, into keep them moving, so that finally we can change our society order. Now, can you move to another one? So that's Le Moderne, yeah. And the next one, okay, an epochal outburst. I took the term out of Vogling. I think it's really what expresses what is going on in our culture. And according to Vogling, it's the outbursts are a result of the ever-present tension of the within and the beyond that is always ever-present in humanity. It's our archetypal inheritance. It's our common denominator. It's that tension, that philosophical questions, the cluster of philosophical questions that we carry with us since the very beginning of self-awareness. And now this epochal outbursts manifest in what Vogling calls consciousness transforming events. And what I want to look at then is at late modernity from that point of view, which have been which in my opinion are the most influential consciousness transforming events that have happened in the last 200 years or 300 years of what's called modernism, that have made the existence of an Alfred North Whitehead possible. And the other issue, the other experience that put me in this track is the fact that I read a book called The Rehabilitation of Whitehead by George Lucas Jr., in which he says that he expresses his disagreement with people that have considered Whitehead to be kind of an odd duck that suddenly appeared in the philosophical realm in the 20th century, and that his philosophy had nothing to do with what had been going on previously. And this was strangely kind of, it bothered me, and I said, I want to find out if this is really true. So I'm going back into the examining the ideas that today we can find contained in Whitehead's philosophy that are really coming back from a generation or 2 generations ago. Okay, so we can move to the other. Okay, so for the purpose of this presentation, and because we have a limited time, I've just focused on what I believe to be the most crucial consciousness transforming events that have led to the way of thinking that we are here together examining in this conference. And I'm sure that I left some out or many out that you will probably tell me, oh, you didn't consider this or that. And I'm sure that also I didn't put in there all the scientific discoveries and insights that came from the astronomical and cosmological side of science, which have made a big contribution in the way we are understanding reality today. But it's going to be kind of a little timeline and concept development into the guiding us towards Whitehead's process law. Okay. Now, let me clarify before we keep going on to this, is what does Bergling understand by consciousness transforming events? He considers them to be the benchmarks that alter the order of history. And I am prepared to argue that Bergling's concept of order in history is very similar to what we understand by cultural meaning. So, when I reimagine late modernism, I think of a time in which the underlying societal order is starting to change. Now, it's starting to change everywhere, in education, in economics, in science, in politics, in agriculture, energy policies, women's issues, everywhere. This is a time that requires interdisciplinary interaction, and that's why I'm so pleased here to see in this conference that we are covering all kinds of human disciplines. Now, what can we do in terms of reimagining modernism and in the sense of action and not just discourse? Well, we have to take on account that, unfortunately or fortunately, consciousness moves slowly as it complexifies. It's like, when you're watching dawn in the morning, it's just a little tittering in the darkness, and then the light goes more intense until it reaches noon. It's the same way with consciousness. New experiences and new ideas generally manifest through one individual first, and then maybe they disappear. And then when the time is right, it's usually a group of individuals that brings the ideas to the table, and until these ideas gather enough momentum to become incorporated into the collective unconscious of the community. So I think that late modernism is this time, if we agree with this term, late modernism, is the time when for that momentum to be achieved with all the outburst of ideas that have come to us in the last 3 centuries. We need to put a conscious effort towards the collectivization of the new meaning, so that finally it is possible that this new meaning will be possible to alter the societal order. Now, in his book, Future Primal, Louis Herman, and I'm going to quote here, he said that meaning requires putting things together, making connections. It requires narrative, description, integration, reconstruction, and synthesis. And he calls this a narrative of meaning. Okay. Now, this is what we, in our language, we usually know as story. It's the time of narrative that not only gives you facts and dates, if it gives you dates and so on, but it reaches to the depths of human experience and to its affect, to our symbolical and our mythical senses, okay, and to that archetypal shared origin. And today, at the beginning of the 21st century, we have stories within stories to tell, starting with the extraordinary story of the universe that Thomas Berry and Brian Swim gave us not many years ago. So, the story I want to tell, so that is action. Can you move to the story I want to tell is this story, the saga of the global transformation from our cosmological outlook, from a dualistic to a monistic, but most fascinating for me is from a mechanistic to an organic point of worldview. The fascination I feel about it is because I think that this vision of reality, understanding the sequence of events that made an Alfred North Whitehead possible will help me to understand his thinking, and also maybe it will help me to explain his thinking to other people. So in order to weave this particular story, I have focused then on the consciousness transforming events that I find to be most crucial. Now, at the root of this current epochal outburst that we seem to be going through, I think it's the advent of monism, which came to us through the work of Spinoza as early as the 17th century. He lived between 1632 and 1677. Now, his cosmological outlook, through his cosmological outlook, he said he believed that there cannot be, and I quote here, there can be no more than one substance that is eternal, infinite in size, and mental and physical at once. We're talking of the 17th century. He also gave us the first hints of the interiority of matter, inner subjectivity. He talked about a living universe and the idea of the limitation of God's and the humans' free will. And he was also critical of the anthropomorphic perspective from which, as a position from which to search for the truth. Now, because of his idea of the limitation of God's free will, he was considered to be an atheist, and his ideas were sent to oblivion for about 100 years, until a German theologian, or they call it in the text that I was reading, a physical theologian, I suppose he was involved in some kind of physics, he discovered his ideas in Germany and shared them with Goethe. And Goethe became very inspired by Spinoza's work. And he, in maturing Spinoza's work and his own work, Goethe, in a process that Goethe called his inner evolution, he described it as the art of slowly seeing the whole, following nature as his teacher. So, and this kind of inner process of Goethe is what brought to us, or gave us, the idea of the concept of the relationship between the parts and the whole, and the concept of the phenomenon that probably all of us are familiar. If somebody wants to know what it means, I can explain it later. So, in a recent article that I read a few days ago by a philosopher called Frank Teichmann, Frank Teichmann suggested that if it were not for Goethe's work, late philosophers such as Fichte, as Schelling, Hegel, the von Humboldt brother, and Schlegel, to all of whom Goethe recognized being indebted in his the development of his own work, these later philosophers would not have been able to conceive the idea of evolution if it had not been for Goethe's work. So, at this point in time, the doors of Western consciousness were open to receive the coming evolution by Darwin. Okay. Now, Darwin was so important in the transformation of Western mind that I quote here a little paragraph from Bergson's Creative Evolution, where he said the following: Kant lived at a time when the European mind was still dominated by the picture of a world having a single set of fixed laws and a single set of fixed species, existing and changed through countless millennia. But Darwin does away with fixed species and unilinear chains of being. That was a comment by Bergson. Now, in a book written by John Hott, that's called God After Darwin, John Hock summarizes briefly what Darwin's thought was about. He says, all living, and I quote here, all living, this is Darwin, these are Darwin's ideas. All living beings share a common ancestry and are therefore historically and organically interconnected. The vision of a continuum of life seems to challenge the traditional sense of sharp ontological discontinuity between human and the rest of nature. Evolution blurs the lines separating what we used to think of as distinct levels of being, making it more difficult than before to distinguish human from animal and living from the non-living. Now, unfortunately, Darwin's theory of evolution has been interpreted in many different ways. And one of the ways of interpretation has been what we now know as the reductionist and monistic doctrine that is whose most well-known representatives are Dennett and Dawkins and Gould, that says that life has no direction and that the universe is purposeless and matter is all there is. And this, unfortunately, seems to still be the most popular understanding of evolution in science. According to this, to the defenders of this position, they say that only a materialistic philosophy of nature can appropriately interpret the theory of evolution. So we had the discovery of biological evolution, which split into a monistic way of understanding the world, and which was reductionist, with Dennett, Gould, and Dawkins, and an understanding of reality that will lead us to other thinkers that interpret in a completely different way. So the next big consciousness transformative event was what I called the Great Inward Turn. And it happened in many, it manifested in different ways in each of the ones in epistemological revision, on the understanding of evolution as a creative process, in the discovery of the unconscious, and then the discovery of the collective unconscious. Okay. Now, this inward turn manifested at the beginning of the. Let me see. It manifested through the work, first of all, of William James, who was a physician, philosopher, and psychologist, and he is considered to be the father of American psychology, and was deeply influenced by Darwin's theory of natural selection. James repudiated rationalism, and the big gift that he gave to us was the expanding of our understanding of our epistemological capabilities. I'm quoting here. He said, "Our normal waking consciousness, rational consciousness as we call it, is but one special type of consciousness, whilst all about it there lie potential forms of consciousness entirely different." So that was James' input into this movement of consciousness that we are experiencing today. Then the fact that we could understand consciousness as broader than the rational mind led to the vision of evolution as a creative process informed from within by an internal force that acts in real time. And this, of course, was Bergson, the manifestation of this understanding of consciousness came through Henry Bergson, who lived from 1859 to 1941, and he made a number of crucial contributions to this story related to problems that continue to puzzle us today. For example, the nature of and the interrelationship between time, consciousness, perception, memory, life and evolution. And he advanced the idea that the essential character of life is not of a mathematical or a logical order, but a psychological one. And quoting again from Bergson, the process of immediate experience and intuition are more significant than abstract rationalism and science for understanding reality. Now, Bergson and James were contemporaries, and James said of Bergson, he said, I have the strongest suspicion that the tendency which he has brought into focus will end by prevailing, and that the present epoch will be a sort of turning point in the history of philosophy. Now, after James, or we will see a chart of different lifetimes, so we will see how all these people were kind of overlapped in lifetimes. We have the discovery of the unconscious by Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. And in his work, the concept of the unconscious was central for his understanding of the mind. Now, Freud believed that poets and thinkers had long known the existence of the unconscious, but it was he who had ensured that it received scientific recognition in the field of psychology. Here we're starting with James and with Freud. We're starting a kind of a meeting between science and the theory of the mind. According to a tribute that was paid to him when he died, Freud's work has suffused contemporary Western thought and popular culture. He became a whole climate of opinion under whom we conduct our different lives. And Erich Fromm credited Freud with permanently changing the way human nature is understood. Then, of course, immediately after Freud, we have Jung, who went deeper into human subjectivity or non-subjectivity, and gave us the discovery of the unconscious. And he brought us also the idea of individuation, which is the process of integrating the opposites. Now here we can see the arrival of ideas that will take us to disciplines like transpersonal psychology later on, and the advancement of psychology and all the disciplines related to the mind. And okay, another one. Then, in the meantime, the physicists have been busy, and Max Planck came up with the idea of quanta, which was an idea, a theory that the quantization, in fact, according to physicist Max Born, is the most revolutionary idea which ever has shaken physics. And then, very close in time to Max Planck, we have Einstein's understanding of time-space, which also is going to undermine the very basic ideas that we have of what matter is like and the type of physical world that we live in. Max Planck's quantum theory revolutionized human understanding of atomic and subatomic processes, just as Albert Einstein's theory of relativity revolutionized the understanding of space and time. And then we have another one. We have quantum theory. We went back there. Quantum theory. That's right. Sorry, I didn't see. That's fine. Yeah. And this, of course, is the theory that explains the behavior of matter and energy on the atomic and subatomic level, and incorporated to our knowledge some concepts that we today hold of having other significance, such as the uncertainty principle, matter and wave properties, entangled particles, non-local action, and that also has probably is connected today and is coming to the point in which we are starting to connect this kind of concepts to this, the consciousness studies. And then we have the within of matter and cosmogenesis. We come back to the philosophy side, and we have remember that Spinoza had been the first one that had talked to us of the subjectivity of matter, the inner side of matter. And here comes Teilhard de Chardin with his vision of the within of matter, that everything has a within and a without. And of course, immediately the sense of not immediately, but consequently, the sense that matter is not dead. We can dismiss Descartes' res extensa as a completely dead element, and our understanding of the world starts changing because we're starting to understand that there's more to this than what we had thought.
And who is it you associate with this?
Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And he also comes up with the idea, he was a paleontologist, and he was seeing, material proofs of evolution when he was doing his diggings and so on. So he could understand the concept of evolution very well, with a lot of certainty, but at the same time he had the understanding of this interior of matter. And so from there he moves to the idea of the cosmos being in evolution, not something that had been started and done, but something that was evolving. And that is the term cosmogenesis that we know today, that we owe to Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And then after that, we finally come to the time when we get to what I call, or what Whitehead called, the philosophy of organism, in which, if we look back, we will see that all these ideas, the quanta of experience, quanta coming from Planck's idea of that the world manifests in little specific flashes. So Whitehead applies it to experience. Then the idea of pan-experientialism, the reality of process, seamlessness of being, the limitation of free will, not only of God's will, but of human free will. We have free will, we have freedom of choice, but it's limited. It's not absolute. The subjects, and nothing but subjects. Okay, all these ideas are contained in this man who was a philosopher. He was first of all a mathematician and a logician. Then he was a philosophy of nature, and then a philosopher and a metaphysician. He has the capability then, because of this background, of gathering information from the sciences and from the philosophical realm, and putting it together in a system that explains explains reality as a process, and from a point of view of an organism that is constantly feeding itself up into life, or into movement, into flow. Okay, so can you put them into this one? So here is what it fascinates me, is this Goethe outburst. And if you see, it's kind of a curve that goes intensifying at the end of between the very slow at the 1600s, in the 17th century. Then it starts in the German Romantics, and not only with Goethe, but there are always a cluster of people around each of his ideas that they discuss and they deepen and they add to the vision of one man or a couple of people, and then it becomes a whole way of thought. So around Goethe, there's a whole cluster of people, including Schelling and Fichte and so on. And then we have the discovery of biological evolution. Then we know that we can acquire knowledge not only through rationality, but through other different parts of our unconscious. Then we have Bergson and his understanding of evolution not as a physical, by chance, by sheer chance movement, but as a creative evolution that is impelled from the inside. And then we have the unconscious, the collective unconscious. Then we have, of course, these two guys that revolutionized our understanding of matter and time, quantum theory. And we come to Whitehead, which is kind of the collection. He stands on the shoulders of all these other people. So the idea that he was an odd phenomenon, separated from the natural evolution of philosophy, I think it's just, I believe it's plainly wrong. Whitehead was the timeless, the perfectly timed manifestation of the evolution of consciousness that had been happening since that time. And then, of course, after Alfred North Whitehead, we start having other, I don't know at this point if we can call them transforming, consciousness transformative events, but the bringing back of mythology and the importance of mythology and archetypal understanding. And then another humongous thinker at this point is Eric Goethe, who sees history as a development of consciousness, basically. He says history is the sequence of, he doesn't put it as a sequence, but the movement of consciousness through the human, because humans, the interpreters of being. I mean, he has some fantastic idea. And then, of course, in between here, what's missing, it's all the developments of science in the astronomical sense and the cosmological sense that led to the story of the universe with Berry and Swim. And then we have thinkers like Deleuze who talk about, what is the term of his conception, is univocity, which is, he says, pluralism and monism is the same thing, because we are, all of the different beings are part of the same being, and he sees the universe as a shape-shifting element that is constantly in a move and changing from present to present to present to present. And so, and I put Capra up there because Capra was one of the first people in our time that suddenly looked at all this, and he said, you know, there is some kind of connection between what the Eastern world has been saying for a long, 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 long time, and what we are discovering, and through science and through, you know, and the insights of philosophy that are coming to us this time. And this is a book that has transformed many people, or has pushed many people, one of them is myself, into looking into this equivalence of East and West. So the point then that I wanted to make here basically is that in late modernity, which is all this space here is what we call late modernity. This little kind of shoot is started developing, and it's acquiring more and more momentum. And one of the proofs of that momentum is the fact that we're here in this amazingly extensive conference that covers so many disciplines. So that's all I have to say for today. Any questions? Yes?
Well, the thing that immediately occurs to me looking at this graph is that it seems to follow an exponential curve.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so what do you think happens when the curve goes vertical? Do you think it'll be an S curve, or do you think we'll go up and out in the set, achieve dimensional?
Well, I hope it's not as intolerant when it goes up there forever. Well, the idea of Vogeling's idea of the epochal outburst is that when ideas that contradict the existing paradigm acquire such a momentum that they are capable of fully contradicting the prevalent paradigm and destabilizing it, then is when the social order, that I mean the political institutions, the economic institutions, the educational system starts either first crumbling and then being reshaped. Now, this is not only happened today. It has, I mean, if Vogling tells us of how it has happened many times in history, and that's this kind of bursts of new ideas is a symptom of that the old vision of reality, the old cosmological outlook is not working anymore. And one of the experiences I have had in teaching, and I am teaching people that are not in the philosophical realm. There are people that in the Sophia Center at Holy Names University, there are people, usually adults, that are kind of seeking for some meaning of their lives or what they want to do in the future, or what they want to do with their lives. And they are people that have never heard of James, Bergson, I mean, they have no idea, or very vague. I mean, they've heard of Darwin's evolution, but I find such a thirst for the transformation of cosmological view that seems to be kind of latent in them. And so when you explain to them the idea of participation, interrelatedness of the whole and the parts and so on, it's like sponges absorbing, and they want more and more and more. And so that's why I've started thinking, well, how can I come to these people, to these fabulous students, and explain to them Whitehead? So in order to arrive here, we have to start here. Very little by little, transforming the idea of this mechanistic thing that you can separate, and going into the idea of the wholeness, and then from there on keeping up going. So as incomplete that I know this is, this kind of shows what's going on in this part, in this time, in this period of time. Any other questions?
Just a comment. I love this chart. It's fantastic. I think it's so fascinating. The quantum conference happened in 1920, 1919.
Yeah.
And
the beginning of
Whitehead was one of the few people on the planet qualified to read the math. I mean, so he was able to actually interiorize the meaning of quantum physics at the time. And it's fascinating to see that 100 years, almost 100 years, 95 years since that quantum conference that Einstein didn't attend, we're still grappling with and haven't really fully interiorized as a culture the implications of quantum. And,
we haven't yet.
Yeah, and it's slowly seeping into more popular formats like, say, postmodernism in literature.
Yeah.
Slowly, but the average person, right, who is not even doing calculus, that's something that's happening somewhere else. Quantum theory, quantum this, and I think that it speaks so highly to Whitehead, right? That like here's this person who got it at the time, created an entire spectrum of cosmology that we're now only able to make sense of. And
Speaking of which, there's one more, I forgot one slide, which is basically what you have just said. That's Isabelle Stengers, who is a French philosopher that has written a lot on Whitehead. And she has the following comment, which is exactly what you're saying. She says, Whitehead belongs to our epoch because he asks a question that is ours, that of our lack of resistance to the way in which, since the beginning of the 19th century, what has been called progress has redefined the world. From this viewpoint, one could say today, at a time when it has become impossible to ignore the consequences of this progress, Whitehead's thought finds an actuality which it lacked in its own way, or at the time when he came up with it. So today he is more actual, and we understand him better than when he started publishing his I have forgotten that. Well, it was fantastic to hear John Cobbs say the other night in his speech, the fact that he said that we have this philosophy, this thought, this system, this understanding of the world. We do not need to reinvent the wheel again. And it's not. And I was challenged many times during when I was studying at CIAS, why I was so fascinated by Whitehead's thought, and and I was not, why not other philosophers? And it was it's not because he is the greatest new thing. It's because he contains all the thought that comes before. It contains 2 centuries of conceptual thinking and of scientific thinking. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We'll have a 25-minute break before Sherry's presentation, but thank you very much.